So we take pleasure to introduce our esteemed panelist for the show. Advocate Tanu Mehta is a mediator, arbitrator, and conflict resolution specialist with 25 years of experience. She is on POSH committee of Bombay High Court. Welcome, Tanu ma'am.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you so much. We also have with us Advocate Akshata Limay, who is an Indian qualified lawyer. She holds a master's degree in international law and economics from the World Trade Institute University of Bern, Switzerland, where she focused on international trade and investments law and policy. So, Advocate Akshata is currently working at the International Trade Center, a joint agency of UN and the WTO, as an advisor on sustainability standards and global value chains. So, welcome Akshata ma'am on TaazaTalks.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
We also have with us advocate and solicitor Sneha Nanatkar, who has rich experience of 14 years in the field of civil and commercial litigation, journal corporate and insolvency and bankruptcy matters, real estate and white collar crime, maritime laws and cross-border disputes. Advocate Sneha is currently associate with Phoenix Legal Firm. So welcome Sneha ma'am.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Thank you so much. Advocate Nehal Parekh specializes in field of indirect taxation, dispute resolution, arbitration, real estate and testamentary matters. Advocate Nehal has worked with leading law firms in India and has successfully represented clients in various courts with tribunals, authorities and arbitral forums, handling complex with high-stake matters. With 13 years of experience under her wings, Advocate Nehal has started a full-service law firm in the name of NNP Law Associates. Welcome Nehal ma'am.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thank you so much. Hi, good evening everyone. कैसे हैं आप सब?
Good evening.
Good evening.
ये हमारे ताज़ा टॉक्स के लिए बहुत ऑनर की बात है कि आज हमारे प्लेटफॉर्म पर आप जैसे बड़ी बड़ी हस्तियां हमारे साथ आई हैं. थैंक यू सो मच मैम. थैंक यू सो मच.
Thank you. The pleasure is all ours.
So we wholeheartedly welcome each of our panelists and we are honored to have them talk about the burning topic of this day. So let's begin the advocate Akshata Limay, who is graced with her presence from Geneva. Good evening ma'am. Akshata ma'am. कैसी हैं आप?
Hello, good evening. बहुत बढ़िया.
So as an Indian qualified lawyer working in international organization, can you please highlight the role of women in international trade?
Yes, absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for including me. बड़ी हस्ती तो नहीं हूँ, पर I'll be happy to share a little experience that I have. Maybe I will begin with highlighting that gender inequality has quite a correlation when it comes to poverty and hunger. And research has always shown that when more income is placed in the hands of women, there is an upward trend when it comes to child nutrition, health, as well as poverty reduction. So women have a very critical role to play when it comes to international trade, but of course international trade policies impact men and women very differently. It has to be noted that when there is more inclusion of women in international labor markets, there is more opportunity for the country's growth of productivity, poverty reduction, more diversification, as well as innovation. And in order to achieve more gender equality, it's also important that women are placed in the positions of leadership and decision making. And I have to be proud in saying that the three of the trade organizations in Geneva, which is the WTO, International Trade Center, as well as UNCTAD, are all led by inspiring women at the moment. So in this point of history, I feel like I'm very proud to be a part of that community.
Wonderful, ma'am. So, ma'am, what are your perspectives about gender equality in global value chains?
Yes, absolutely. I can share a little bit about that by giving you an example maybe of the agriculture sector. It might be curious to note that 43% of the international or global agriculture sector includes women in terms of the labor. However, only less than 20% landowners are actually women. So what we can see that women are more and more included in informal sectors or in an unorganized way. And in order to ensure that women leave their footprint in the global value chains, it's important that we give them that control. We include them in a more formalized way. So, in order to achieve more gender equality, we can move towards improvement of livelihoods as well as gender pay parity.
Okay. So मैम आप स्नेहा मैम, तनु मैम, नेहल मैम, आप कुछ इसके बारे में बोलना चाहेंगी?
ऐसा नहीं है कि हमारे यहाँ ये एक्सपेरिमेंट नहीं हुआ है. Both when it comes to power, when they gave reservation for women in panchayats, right? In the first generation, all the daughters and the wives were elected, and the men held power. But by the time the next elections came in, the next generation came in, the women knew that we are not going to be puppets. And over the years, it has just become better and better. You just see the data of panchayats being run by women, where women are, the decision makers. There's better water connectivity, better sanitation, because women generally nurture their communities. They don't fritter on themselves. They don't waste money on just self, aggrandizement, generally. On the other hand, in Maharashtra, we saw that at some point of time, the government had given a waiver of stamp duty if women were made owners of property.
Yes.
And it did work well because a lot of women got hold over their property. ये बात अलग है कि आपको women को empower करना पड़ेगा कि आपके पास है property, तो ensure that you're not thrown out and ensure that you continue to hold it. वो बात अलग है, लेकिन empowerment is very important.
I would just like to say that, yeah, absolutely, gender equality is not new to India, but there's a lot of work to be done. Because when we speak from our perspective, sometimes it's very restricted to our backgrounds, a certain social strata. There are a lot of lenses missing, which we need to incorporate a little more and look at the ground roots. As the transformation starts at panchayat level, as Tanu was mentioning, and that's absolutely empowering, right? Because we need women decision makers and leaders not only at an international level, but at a national level, at a regional level, at a panchayat level. And then when we consider the unit of a household, as you were mentioning, Sneha. So yeah, at all levels, I think key priority is including women in the position of leadership and decision making. Absolutely.
And that's how our government has done good by including 33% of seats in Rajya Sabha, Lok Sabha for having women. That's a very big, good step rather.
Yes, ma'am. So, ma'am, talking about gender equality and parity, so Sneha ma'am से मैं पूछना चाहूँगी, could you share what do we mean by gender parity and in legal terms and what its importance?
I guess the first step is to understand why we need to even bother ourselves with this concept in the first place. I mean, we day in, day out hear that women are being passed over for promotion or even asked to leave their jobs just because they are pregnant or they are considered unfit for carrying on their employment. Equal opportunity is basically right. So gender parity or equality is a right to be treated equal. UNICEF says that gender equality means women, men, girls, boys should enjoy the same rights and liberties. So gender equality fundamentally means all citizens, regardless of their gender, are equal in the eyes of law and have equal access to all the resources and opportunities and decision making in India. And now coming to the importance of gender parity, I would say we've all heard this. If you educate a man, you educate an individual. But if you educate a woman, you educate an entire family. So it's no more a moral pressure or a social issue, but it's a socio-economic challenge, I would say. It's important for sustainable development and realizing human rights. for the development of the entire nation, this is important. There's a thing called as Global Gender Gap Report. It's an index designed to measure gender equality, first published in 2006 by World Economic Forum. Here, we assess the countries on how they are dividing their resources and opportunities among the male and female counterparts, basically giving you a comprehensive framework regarding how the resources are equitably distributed between men and women. This report serves as a catalyst for greater awareness as well as greater exchange between policymakers. Now, I would proudly say India has ranked 113 out of 190 countries in the World Bank Women Business and Law Index. But today, even today, Indian women enjoy only 60% of the legal rights given to men. And it basically lays down the statistics that it will take approx 131 years to close this gender gap. So gender equality is a fundamental human right. It's a necessary foundation for any peaceful, sustainable world. Not a nation, but a world.
Okay. So, ma'am, what progress has India made in terms of gender equality?
The journey towards women's empowerment in India is imbued with history of remarkable milestones. Indian society has revered prodigious women like I just mentioned, Gargi, Maitreyi and Sulabha, where the faculty of reasoning was so superior, far more superior to the ordinary mortals. These were Rishi Patnis who were performing yagyas and homas with their husbands as equals. We have grown up to stories of Swayamvar, as I mentioned earlier. It is basically demonstrating our equality rights to choose a life partner. We have courageous women who fought for the right to vote during independence movement. We had the historic moment of 1956 where Hindu Succession Act granted daughters equal rights to ancestral properties. The trajectory, I would say, has definitely been of progress. We've come a long way from the traditionally entrusted roles of just managing the household and the children to rising up to every occasion, taking up the leadership roles in diverse sectors. So be it conquering the Everest mountain, be it becoming the first woman in space, or running Vande Bharat train for that matter, we are everywhere. But I guess as we celebrate these victories, it is impossible to ignore the stark realities that persist. The social disadvantages, the imbalance such as gender discrimination, violence against women, unequal pay, female feticide, these are major issues. And as my co-panelists have mentioned, as we go rural, these challenges are even more acute due to pervasive patriarchal mindset. So they need to be addressed. So that brings us to the most important part of this discussion as to what are the laws relating to gender equality. Akshata has covered it internationally. I would like to highlight a few of them as far as the Indian scenario is concerned. Indian Constitution itself promises justice, liberty and equality and fraternity for all citizens regardless of their gender. So Article 14 to 18, we have right to equality. We have right not to be discriminated on basis of our gender, caste, religion. Article 16 lays down equal opportunities when it comes to any kind of offices under state. We have 21 article protection of life and personal liberty. We also have directive principles of state policies where Article 39 says equal pay for equal work, whether you're a man or a woman. So government has definitely been taking some remarkable steps for women empowerment to ensure that they stand shoulder to shoulder with their male counterparts. I can name a few. I mean, I would not stretch it here, but there is National Policy for Empowerment of Women in 2001. It aims to eradicate discrimination and violence against women, promoting active participation in decision making. Then we have the Right to Education Act 2009. It ensures free and compulsory education for children from 6 to 14. It has special provisions for benefiting the girls. We also have Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act 2005. It guarantees 100 days wage of employment to rural household. Now, the recent breakthrough has already been covered, Women's Reservation Bill of 2023, passed by Parliament, proposing 33% reservation of seats in Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies for women. I can go on and on, but I would limit myself to few more important parts. Like, we all are aware of the Maternity Benefit Act. We all are aware of Beti Bachao and Beti Padhao Yojana and all. But are we aware of Mahila Hai Haath? It's an online marketing platform for women entrepreneurs. We also have something called as Pradhan Mantri Swasthya Suraksha Yojana. It helps improve access to quality healthcare services for women and girls. So I think we all should be aware of this proud thing that India is also a signatory to an international treaty called as the Convention for Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, also known as CEDAW. So I would say that legal frameworks are there, they exist, there are some improvements, but effective implementation is a whole different ballgame. We 21st century. So coming across these kind of heartbreaking situations is definitely not okay. I mean, we all are aware of the case of Air India versus Nargesh Mirza, air hostess working within Air India. Her employment regulations unfortunately provided for termination of her employment on first pregnancy. I mean, imagine, it's a blessing, it's a noble thing, and termination of her employment on first pregnancy. So she challenged it, of course, and Honorable Supreme Court has struck down these regulations, saying that it is arbitrary and unreasonable and in violation of Article 14. अभी की बात ले लीजिए, Uttarakhand High Court has just now struck down a rule that prevented pregnant women from being considered unfit for government jobs. So this is just a tip of iceberg, but hats off to all the women. I mean, we've seen our mothers, grandmothers, we all are part of this system. These extraordinary and phenomenal women in the society, they do not give up, and they deserve a standing ovation for breaking all the stereotypes around the world. They are the torchbearers of hope, and they teach us to aim higher by breaking the glass ceiling at one at a time. So that's it.
तनु मैम, कुछ कहना चाहती हैं आप इस बारे में?
No, not at all. I think yes, we have to break glass ceilings. Though I do feel that thoda we have to remain a little also rooted to the idea that we should not seek parity with men, but we should seek both an equal footing and equal opportunity and non-discrimination. So I would say this: if I'm pregnant and I require a certain level of safety, protection, etc., to tide over, I require the understanding of both society and my employer to give me that time. At the same time, there has to be a mechanism whereby society accepts that, all right, raising children, nurturing children is not just my job, it is also the husband's job, it is also the father's job, and therefore there has to be that equality coming in from the home. And I think both empowerment has to go side by side with equality at home.
So with more and more women entering in the workforce, corporates and businesses, there was a need for safety laws and for shedding some light on the said topic. We have Advocate Tanu Mehta, POSH committee member, honor us today. So ma'am, could you throw some light on what is POSH and how was this legislation help on the society?
Yes, first of all, thank you again for having me, and I'm glad that ऐसे programs हो रहे हैं. So POSH basically is a short form of the Prevention of Sexual Harassment. The act is Sexual Harassment Prevention Prohibition Act of 2013, but in short, it's called as POSH. And POSH allows for women to be able to complain against any sexual harassment to a committee that is specially set up for taking in harassment complaints. So a very, very welcome legislation. It came in after a Supreme Court judgment, which is famously called the Vishakha judgment, wherein it had laid down guidelines in an earlier setup where there were no guidelines. If somebody wanted to complain that my promotion was stopped, or I was, unfairly treated because I did not agree to certain sexual favors, or I did not agree to certain advances, or I did not flirt enough, or whatever, then how and where do you complaints, where do they find a answer, not certainly not under labor laws, right? So that is why guidelines were put in, and now we have the POSH Act passed in 2013.
So, what exactly constitutes sexual harassment at workplace, and what remedies are available under the law?
See, sexual harassment is a very broad, thing. Basically, anybody who feels that there are any woman who feels that there are very sexually colored, where there is a request for certain favors which are very sexual in nature. There is even any unwelcome physical, verbal, even non-verbal conduct of somebody which sounds very sexist, or very it sounds like an advance, or a physical contact which is just not right, that a woman feels that you come to know that this is not regular physical contact, this is this touch, or this kind of even eye contact is just not right. Sexual harassment can be any such thing. So it's a very broad understanding. The Act has given a very broad definition of sexual harassment.
Okay. So मैम इसकी क्या जैसे रेमेडीज कुछ मतलब कुछ भी आप थोड़ा सा इस पे लाइट देंगी?
देखिए क्या होता है कि आप किसी एनवायरनमेंट में हो जहाँ लग रहा है आपको, and very sexually charged, okay, which makes you feel unsafe, then it is definitely, it comes under a sexual harassment setup. I mean, it comes under POSH. Now, what is a definitive way of going in? तो इस एक्ट के द्वारा हर वो जगह जहाँ 10 से ज़्यादा एम्प्लॉयज़ हैं वहाँ आपको एक कमिटी बनानी पड़ती है, which is called the IC, internal committee, which has a certain composition, and the composition has to be primarily female. Male is welcome, but it has to be majority female. The head, the chairperson, has to be a female, and the employees of the committee, but external people also have to be part of the committee. That external person can be somebody who's well versed with laws, who's well versed with women's rights, with who's working with NGOs, human rights, whatever it is. And every workplace has to form that committee. That is one. The other place is, of course, when there is no workplace in terms of a formal workplace, like our domestic workers, for example, or our construction workers. कहाँ बड़े haphazardly काम कर रहे हैं, there is no बड़े casually काम कर रहे हैं. तो every authority, whether it's a municipal authority or district authority, everybody has to formalize a local committee, again with that same kind of composition, and a single woman who's not part of an organization but is working somewhere, okay, and has a complaint to make, she can go and make a complaint there. So that is the first part, that you can make a complaint. The second part is, of course, does everybody have this kind of committee? According to me, no. It's been now in 2024, so almost 10 years plus. Not everybody has that committee. And, we have to promote this. Programs like these, for example, make people aware. I hope normal women are listening to it and going and thinking about it, and go and tell their local municipal authority, go and tell their यहाँ कौन सी है ऐसी कमेटी, right? तो एक कमेटी वो फॉर्म होनी चाहिए, which is called the internal complaints committee.
So ma'am, what is POSH policy, and is POSH training is mandatory?
हाँ, तो POSH policy is, तो जिसने भी ये कमेटी बनाई है, ठीक है, they must have a policy कि किस तरह से complaints आएंगी. वैसे एक्ट बताता है कि complaint writing में होनी चाहिए, इस तरह से होनी चाहिए, but there has to be a policy, because if I have for example, if I'm part of an organization that has formulated a committee, it should be disseminated well ना, notice board पे जाना चाहिए कि इस तरह की committee है, हम इस address पे complaints लेंगे, आपकी अगर ऐसी तरह की complaints हो आप please हमारे पास भेजिए, आपको within so many days जवाब दिया जाएगा, etc. So the policy that is made, and the second part is what is kind of training that is required. So if you are part of any committee, okay, if you are part of any organization as an employer, as an authority, the authorities need to be trained कि क्या करना है POSH के लिए. So like that, the word POSH, the alternate word for the committee is Committee Against Sexual Harassment. So ये दो words होते हैं, POSH and CASH. POSH is Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act. CASH is the Committee Against Sexual Harassment. So we have to train people about how to set up their own committees, how to set up their so-called CASH, and this training should happen continuously because people need to be made aware किस तरह की कंप्लेंट्स लेनी है, किस तरह से हैंडल करना है कंप्लेंट्स आए तो किस तरह से रिकॉर्ड करना है, व्हाट शुड नॉट बी आस्क्ड फॉर एविडेंस, व्हाट कैन बी आस्क्ड फॉर एविडेंस. Otherwise it's not supposed, you're not supposed to, for example, evidence act तो बहुत टफ होता है to meet. आपको उतने बड़े स्टैंडर्ड्स नहीं रखने, आपको किस तरह से एविडेंस लेना है, आपको क्या देखना है, क्या नहीं देखना है, ये सब ट्रेनिंग में होता है.
Okay. So what are the consequences of non-compliance?
The employer has to pay a fine if he doesn't have a committee. So non-compliance, there are two ways. So one is that as an employer, we've not formed the committee. Okay. So then if somebody complains, there is a warning. If they still don't do it, then there is a fine under the act. And if they don't do it again, then there are, doubling and tripling of fines, etc. That is the penal consequence. The other consequence that you're talking of is, what if there is a committee, the committee has said ऐसा करना चाहिए. Suppose a committee has found that there is harassment, and the committee has recommended to the employer that आप इसका या तो increment बंद कर दीजिए या इसको transfer कर दीजिए इस employee को, या this is very serious, so he should be dismissed. So what happens when there is a committee recommendation and it is not done? So in those cases, there is an appeal. Suppose an employer has not taken any case, okay, has not gone, has not given a reasoned order, etc. The woman can go and complain to the local police, to the local, under the act, the local authority. So there are, क्या कहते हैं, there are authorities laid
hierarchy.
Yeah, there's a hierarchy laid out where they can go and complain. Thank you.
नेहल मैम कुछ कहना चाहती हैं आप शायद?
I wanted to also ask many people aren't aware that POSH is only women centric. So would you like to throw some light as to whether men can also complain under POSH?
Not right now. Yes, POSH is women centric because whatever it is a patriarchal society, and it is true that majority complaints are from women. Though I will say ki yes, I myself have seen many women misusing the act. Okay, misusing this provision and making false complaints, etc. And possibly that is why there is such a big demand now that it should be gender neutral. That it should not be sexual harassment only for the woman, it should be for male too. But you have to remember that when this came out, there was no such thing. Even so many women weren't in workforce, in the formal workforce. And whatever was happening, it was at a different time when women were at the receiving end. So as of now, POSH is for protection of the woman.
Right.
But I guess at some point of time, there will be a demand and it will have to become gender neutral.
Absolutely. Even I believe that nowadays with so much evolvement of laws happening, eventually at least they got this act. Eventually men ko bhi mil jayega if at all something like this arises.
Okay. we got to know about the international perspective, the gender roles and progress, the prevalent workplace laws. So let's get some insights from Advocate Nehal about how the women-related legislations have evolved in India.
I honestly feel that this matter is kind of taken up by everyone, and it's really so important. And women-centric legislations have evolved over time, as we just mentioned. There were times when there was girl trafficking, dowry, sati, which now all of that has been abolished by each and every act coming into place by the government since age-old times. These taboos are now removed from the skeleton of our society, but it was a gradual process. It did not happen overnight. We now have domestic violence acts. We have POSH, as Tanu ma'am rightly suggested. We have all these acts which Sneha also suggested, that so many women empowering acts are present. And to the extent of modernization that has happened, we now even have live-in relationships which have, kind of been legalized and recognized now. And very basic, like when Sneha, Akshata and ma'am were talking about gender parity and equality, etc., now there is also recognition of small acts coming up, wherein in like in Sabrimala temple, women are also allowed. Earlier women were not allowed to go into the temple, now they are allowed. Triple talaq was earlier not, it was prevalent, but now triple talaq is also abolished. So the legislations have over the period of time gradually and slowly evolved, and today we have a lot of women-centric legislations, and I am proud to be in times where I can actually raise my voice and fight against any kind of injustices if they happen.
Wonderful. So, ma'am, what are some of the marital laws which are helpful to women in India?
Yeah. So marital laws are defined by the religion you are born in or you have accepted. So because India is a secular country, there are many religions which are there, and so married women, when it comes to Hindus, Buddhists, Jains, Sikhs, they are governed by the Hindu Marriage Act. Married woman is having a right to live with her husband. So जैसे ही हम लोग शादी करके जाते, we go to our husband's place to live. Right, that home becomes our home, the woman's matrimonial home, and she cannot, the law which says is she cannot be thrown out of this home. So the Domestic Violence Act under Section 17 gives that a shared household under the Domestic Violence Act, it means when a woman is living with her husband or her partner, or in consanguinity or marriage, and or with the in-laws, if the husband has passed away or the woman is living with the in-laws, then in that case also, or in the case of a live-in relationship with her boyfriend, she cannot be thrown out of that particular home. So that law has come out and evolved very nicely since 2005. This amendment has come, except by procedure of law, of course. Then the woman has a right to live in that particular place, irrespective of the fact that the property may or may not be in her name. It can be owned or rented by her husband, by her family home or anything. जरूरी नहीं है कि वो property उसके नाम के अंदर होना चाहिए. Her residency rights are always protected under the Domestic Violence Acts, and also शादी के बाद just you cannot throw out unless and until, okay fine, then there is divorce rights, then there are custody rights, there are protection orders which are given, there are remedies which are given under the Domestic Violence Act which can be taken into consideration if at all any kind of injustice like such happens. So there is a huge leap in the protection of women's rights, especially to women who are put under guilt by thinking that the matrimonial home is not her home. So there was this case in Prabha Tyagi versus Kamlesh Devi. The Supreme Court has held that the widow also can claim her right to reside in her matrimonial home or a shared household even after the husband's death. And as far as further marital laws goes, like Stridhan. So it's a very known topic, but still it requires a little bit of a light. The Stridhan is something which you get while you are getting married from your parental house or from your husband's house, and it is absolutely for the ownership of the woman who's getting married. So these laws were back in the day, it was in place. Nowadays we are all independent and we are earning and everything. But back in the day it was very difficult for women to go out and work. So Sweden was then, kept into effect that this is for my daughter or this is for the woman who's getting married, so that if she has any marital problems later in life, then she can use that. Then, as Sneha had pointed out, there is Maternity Benefit Act, there is Freedom from Dowry, there are Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act, wherein there is a choice given to the woman whether or not she has to, abort a child or something. Considering there are many guidelines which are there, but it gives a right to safe and legal abortion under specific medical and social conditions. So these laws empower you to make informed decisions about the reproductive health. So yeah, these are the marital laws, and there are many laws which I would maybe later on throw light on.
So तनु मैम, आपने हमें बहुत सारा वक्त दिया, आप यहाँ पर आई हमारे प्लेटफॉर्म पे, हमें बहुत अच्छा लगा, क्योंकि थोड़ा सा आपकी भी अपॉइंटमेंट्स हैं, तो आप प्लीज़.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me over, and
Thank you, ma'am.
I hope आपका बहुत दूर दूर तक प्रोग्राम की ख्याति रहे,
Thank you so much.
आप अच्छा काम करते रहें, and we are all in it together, so we have to hold each other's hands and go.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tanu.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tanuji.
थैंक यू. सो कंटिन्यूटी में लेते हुए स्नेहा मैम, आपकी कुछ आप कहना चाहेंगी इस टॉपिक पे कि मैरिटल लॉज और इसके ऊपर, इस रेमेडीज के ऊपर आप कुछ बोलना चाहेंगी?
As a woman, we all need to be aware of these small things, which can be later on used against that particular woman in court of law. जैसे कि निहाल ने बोला, ये मेरा हक है, शादी के बाद पति के साथ उस घर में रह सकती हूँ
जी.
और हमने प्रैक्टिस में ये भी देखा है कि यही एक ग्राउंड होता है कि अगर वो पति के साथ नहीं रह रही है फॉर अ पर्टिकुलर पीरियड विच इज अराउंड 2 years, दैट कैन बी यूज्ड अगेंस्ट हर एज अ डिवोर्स ग्राउंड एज वेल. सो आई वुड से दैट थैंक यू नेहा फॉर डीलिंग विद दीज निटी-ग्रिटीज, बिकॉज ये हर एक वुमेन को पता होना चाहिए. एंड आई थिंक इमोशनल कॉन्टेक्स्ट में बहुत ज्यादा प्रेशर में रहती हैं हमारे यहाँ पे महिलाएं, तो ये लीगल लॉज का अवेयरनेस बहुत ही ज्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट है, भले ही वो छोटे अमाउंट में हो या किसी और तरीके से. सो आई गेस दिस प्लेटफॉर्म हैज एक्चुअली डन रियली गुड जॉब बाय पुटिंग दीज ऑल फैसेट्स टुगेदर. सो इट्स ग्रेट.
Yes, absolutely.
Nehal ma'am, what are the myths of succession laws for women in India?
Yes, absolutely. So this question is very is taken about. So succession laws में पहले ऐसा होता था कि बेटी पराया धन है, ऐसा बोलते थे कि ब्याह कर दिया या बेटी की शादी कर दी तो फिर वो,
आज भी बहुत जगह पर ऐसा होता है मैम.
Yes, absolutely. So even today, many households they say that, but there have been plenty of reforms in the field of succession laws, and there is a significant shift towards more gender-inclusive succession laws. So yes, as Sneha had rightly pointed out, that today ancestral property में बेटियों का भी हक है, equal हक है. So when फादर का इनहेरिटेंस में बेटी और बेटा का इक्वल हक है, दैट इज समथिंग अ वेरी बिग लीगल स्टेप व्हिच हैज कम आउट, एंड इट अप्लाइज टू ऑल हिंदू, सिख्स, जैन्स एंड बुद्धिस्ट. 2005 में ये अमेंडमेंट आया था, एंड सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने बहुत वेरियस लैंडमार्क जजमेंट्स में ये बताया है कि जेंडर इक्वालिटी यहाँ पे बहुत ही ज़रूरी एस्पेक्ट है. एंड ऑल्सो वन मोर इम्पॉर्टेंट थिंग इज दैट in Muslim laws also, so the laws, as I mentioned earlier, the religion based law hote hain because India is a secular country. Even in Muslim laws there is a lot of differences nahi hai zyada. In fact, there is not a lot of differences. So there is a Shia law, there is Sunni law. In all of those laws also, women do get a right to inherit from their father, although they have their guidelines which say that 1/3 has to be gone for their debts, and then only there you can inherit the property. The men do get double the amount how much a daughter can inherit. there is some disparity, but when it comes to Muslim laws also, as I mentioned, triple talaq is something which has been abolished, and there is a very onward and a progressive approach which has been taken in India. And as I mentioned earlier, कि succession laws हो या कोई भी law हो, when it comes to women laws, it's a very sensitive issue, and a lot of time has to be, it has to be time tested, and it has to evolve gradually. Everything, like nothing happens overnight, kind of a thing. So yeah, there is a lot of progression in the laws.
Anything you wanted to say, Sneha ma'am?
I think she's covered it all. I mean, and we can go on and on about it for 2 to 3 days, but then she's covered all the major points.
So what a roller coaster of emotions and knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely,
Indeed.
Anchal. And just one small thing I wanted to also add is that people need to be aware that domestic violence, there is a civil as well as criminal remedies available to women. ये बहुत ही इम्पोर्टेंट है. आज लोगों को लगता है कि हाँ, डोमेस्टिक वायलेंस हम लोग सिर्फ क्रिमिनल एक्शन करेंगे तो लोग डर जाते हैं. सो हाँ, पीपल से दैट 498A wherein there is cruelty, तो वहाँ पे imprisonment का डर है, but there is monetary compensation also, which is under Domestic Violence Act 2005. There is protection, there is custodial benefits, and there is a lot of remedies given. And I would urge each and every woman to use these platforms to acquaint themselves, to read these laws, and in case of any difficulties, reach out to people like us who can actually help out. And we would like to help out. And on this occasion of Women's Day, I would love to urge everyone, if they have any difficulties in their lives relating to women laws, if they want to know more, they can definitely contact us.
So I'm amazed how the world and Indian laws have changed, and so many legislations for the protection and safety of women's rights have been enacted. So thank you so very much, Nehal ma'am and Sneha ma'am. Thank you so very much. आप ताज़ा टॉक्स
It's been a pleasure.
ये हमारे लिए
Thank
बहुत
you.
ऑनर की बात है कि हम इतना
Thank
बड़ा
you.
प्रोग्राम कल रिलीज करने जा रहे हैं. सो आप सभी को बहुत ज़्यादा थैंक यू वेरी मच.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us.
pleasure. Thank you so much for having us, and keep doing the good work. We all are here together.
We really hope कि ये सुनने के बाद या ये देखने के बाद at least certain percentage of our population realizes that they do have rights, they can raise their voice, and they need not be submissive in any form. Of course, it calls for a balance, as Tanu ma'am had said and as Nehal had discussed, that there needs to be a balance in implementation of any law. But jab tak we are not aware of any problems, the evils existing in our society, and unless we care, women are women's supporters, we need to uplift each other. So unless we care and do something about it, it will not change. So we will be happy to help anyone who wants to have any kind of dialogue. And I really hope that this Women's Day can bring about a definitive change into the society.
Absolutely, ma'am.
So well
Thank you
said.
so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we are the team at TaazaTalks and are humbled to have shared the stage with 4 wonderful and entrepreneurs that unapologetically have stood the test of times and proved that Nari is Shakti, Nari is Samman. तो ये बहुत ज़रूरी है. और थैंक यू वेरी मच स्नेहा मैम, थैंक यू वेरी मच तनु मैम, थैंक यू वेरी मच अक्षता मैम, एंड थैंक यू वेरी मच नेहल मैम. आप हमारे ताज़ा टॉक्स के प्लेटफॉर्म पे आए. सो प्लीज़ व्यूअर्स, हमारे बहुत स्पेशल वुमेंस डे को स्पेशल को सुनिएगा. ये हमारे बहुत ही सम्माननीय मेहमान थे आज, जो हमारी इंडिया के जाने मानी हस्ती और लॉयर्स हैं. एंड मुझे बहुत गर्व महसूस हो रहा है आज इनको यहाँ पे लाते हुए. सो प्लीज़ लाइक कीजिएगा, शेयर कीजिएगा, कमेंट्स कीजिएगा. थैंक यू वेरी मच. #TaazaTalks. थैंक यू वेरी मच.